Hello and welcome to this afternoon briefing on Sunday, July 22nd, 2025, the Jerusalem Press Club. I'm Jonathan Beck, Director of Content at the club. This is a dramatic morning in Israel. Israelis have just about 4 hours ago came out of shelters after quite an intensive barrage. And this came after at 3 in the morning, the US struck the Fordo nuclear facility. A lot has happened since. The Iranians say they have taken the uranium out of there before the US struck. The US says the facility is completely destroyed. We have two guests with us on the line. We have Lieutenant Colonel in Reserve Sarit Zehavi, who's the founder and president of the Alma Research and Education Center and a former officer in the Military Intelligence Corps. She's been researching Hezbollah rocket fire towards Israel since the beginning of the war. She's done, her center and researchers have done impressive work documenting statistics of all the attacks and creating graphs, and became real experts on Hezbollah. And I'm hoping she's going to be out of a job because Hezbollah is going to be dismantled, but it's not just yet happening, and Hezbollah said will side by Iran. Our second guest is Eldad Shavit, a senior researcher at the INSS. Before that, he served a long career in the IDF Intelligence Corps. Among his jobs, he was in the Prime Minister's office as an assistant for assessment to the head of the research division. In those positions, he was responsible for formulating the intelligence assessment regarding regional and international issues. So he's well placed to discuss today's matters. I'll begin with you, Eldad. Thank you, Sarit and Eldad, for joining us today. Thank you very much. Eldad, are you with us on the line?
Yeah, thank you for hosting us.
Open your, I just can't see your camera. If you can open it.
Maybe
anyway, I'll present. So,
start with Sarit.
Okay, so we'll do this with audio. Let's discuss yesterday's strike. Obviously, the US, was threatening to enter the fray for so long, and yesterday it did. It carried out the strike on Fordo, the strike that only the US can do with the B-2 bombers. What can you tell us what this means, and also obviously what comes next? Because Iran said now US targets are fair play. Is this just gung-ho speak from almost collapsed regime, or are they going to go all in and fight the US head to head? Eldad, are you with me?
Can you repeat the question? The line was not very good.
Yeah. What I was saying is, if you can discuss yesterday's strike by the B-2 bombers on the Fordo facility, which has been awaited a long time. I'm assuming the US knows that this may not be the first and last move it does in this war. So now the US is full in. Can you discuss that aspect? But I'm not sure he can hear us on the line.
This question was for Eldad, right?
Yeah, let's reestablish connection with Eldad. In the meantime, let me ask you, Sarit, let's move forward in time and to today's barrage against Israel, in which some hits were found, and also in yesterday's rocket attack and before that. The Iranians are obviously firing less rockets in each salvo, and yet they're managing to pierce through the interception facilities of Israel. Can you say why that happens, in your opinion?
Look, we don't know exactly. Very little is published about what is being launched or the types that are being launched. I can talk about two options, maybe two of them together, I don't know. One option is that the Iranians are using advanced missiles, which we didn't know before the war. I'm talking about Alma Center is based on open source intelligence. We didn't know how much they have of those, how operational they are. But we knew that they are developing some advanced weapons like the Hormeshar. We published a full document about this missile, a missile that can carry cluster bombs And we saw that there was attack with this kind of missile 2 days ago. That's one option. The second option is the percentage of missiles that needs to be intercepted at the same time. If I'm giving as an example, Hezbollah's barrages, many of the rockets were supposed to fall in open areas, and we don't intercept what's about to fall in open area. But if the missiles of Iran appear to be very accurate, they know exactly where they are, what they are targeting and where they are targeting. And I think that what is happening now is that you have 30 missiles in a barrage that you need to intercept. And none of them is about to fall in open area. All of them are accurate. All of them needs to be addressed. And this is challenging, and there is never 100% in this. Doesn't matter how successful your air defense systems are.
Okay, can you say, I mean, during the entire war with Hezbollah, they launched like thousands of rockets. I'm guessing they don't have the same kinds of rockets because the level of destruction we're seeing from the hits this war is far greater, even though
it's very different. Here it's rockets, here it's missiles, it's ballistic missiles. It's different with the amount of explosives. That's why you see, like from the rockets of Hezbollah, maybe a room or an apartment was destroyed. From the ballistic missiles of Iran, you get a neighborhood or a street that is destroyed. So it's a huge difference. The distances, of course, are different, and the accuracy is different. As I've said, it appears to be that the missiles of Iran are very accurate, and that's why you see that they are targeting civilian areas, dense populated areas of Israel, which they know that it will cause damage to civilians, or the hit in the hospital. It's also a good example. Each hit, it was a specific target. This was not the case with Hezbollah. Hezbollah launched barrages because it knew that the rockets are inaccurate, and that way they can spread all over the area.
Do you think it's likely that the Israeli Air Force will be able to take out enough launchers and rockets inside Iran in the coming days to eliminate the threat? I know it's a big word, but make it almost redundant.
Look, we discussed this. I will put it this way. We don't see from open source any evidence of ballistic missiles that are getting into Iran. This is important with regard to the question of supply. So if the IDF spokesperson talked about 2,500 ballistic missiles at the beginning of the war that can get to Israel, and we don't know how many were degraded, but about half of the launchers were degraded. So it seems that Iran still have capability. If it continues at this tempo of a few tens a day, it can still continue for at least a month, maybe more than a month. Depends how much it will launch every day. I'm afraid that that's the worst case scenario, that Iran will not surrender and will refuse to stop the war, and will try to continue a war to exhaust us with launching few missiles every day, and that way not enabling us to go back to routine. I think this is what they would want. I don't accept the evaluations that Khamenei is pragmatic. Maybe he is pragmatic, but he is also holding a very radical ideology, and this radical ideology, in a way, it is blinding him, and I don't think he didn't see the point that the Trump will decide to attack, and he will not see the point that the regime will fall this way or another, and he will continue as much as possible. And I think when I'm saying we, I mean the Western world, we should make our decisions according to this evaluation, that we are facing here a kamikaze regime that is not willing to surrender.
Okay, yes. So continuing from this, how much more do you think Iran can escalate its direct attacks on Israel compared to what
I don't
we've
think
already
it can escalate with regard to the ballistic missiles. Again, I think that what we saw, it's pretty much the capabilities that were left, but I think it can preserve the current situation, which is problematic for Israelis to preserve for a long time. And that's why a new strategy is needed here from now on, after we gain the achievement that we wanted to eliminate the nuclear facilities. Now we need to see how do we end this? How do we end this together? Again, under the basic assumption that Iran doesn't want to end this.
Okay, thank you very much for this, Sarit. We should have.
I just want to add, I'm sorry, Jonathan, I just want to add one more sentence. I think that there can be, I cannot overrule an option that Iran will try to execute terror attacks against American, Israeli, and Jewish assets around the world. And I cannot overrule, with everything that is happening, I cannot overrule the option that the proxies of Iran that still exist, even though they are much weaker, will join in that way or another, either Hezbollah, which we hear the sounds of war here. I live 9 kilometers from Lebanon, or the Houthis of Yemen, or the Iraqis. I agree that none of them today pose a strategic threat to the state of Israel, and we caused a lot of damages to them. But again, we should be prepared that this is still an option, even though they are focusing, if I'm taking Hezbollah as an example, focusing on recovery. They have other priorities now. They understand that if they will join in, they are taking a huge risk to their very surviveness in Lebanon. And yet, since, as I've said, it is a radical ideology, we shouldn't assume that it will not happen.
Okay, thank you very much for this, Sarit. Eldad, are you with us on the line?
Can you hear me?
So I'm not sure we've reestablished connection. I'm guessing he cannot hear us. Okay, I have more questions for you, Sarit. Can you say, to the best of your knowledge, just kind of repeat something?
Hi, everyone. We're just having some technical difficulties. Please hold on 1 second, and Jonathan will jump back on. Everybody just stay on the line. Jonathan is reconnecting right now.
Can you see me? Hold on.
We can hear you fine. Hi, Jonathan. We can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So I can't see you yet. My Zoom is readjusting. Anyway, we had so Sarit, if you can hear me, our last question was from Marisa. By the way, good to see your name. Long time. Why does it seem that Israel's interception systems are intercepting less than they could before? Eldad, we have a bunch of questions. We'll be with you in a minute.
Okay, I think I answered this question already. I just want to add to your question about the threats. I addressed the threats in my answer. I addressed the threats against Israel. I think we should say 2 words about the threats against the United States, which is clearly, as Iran threatened, are now at risk to be attacked by Iran. I want to focus on the Navy. Iran has 2 types of Navy in the Hormuz Straits. One is of the Army and one is of the IRGC, which is clearly the IRGC is much more equipped. And when we speak about the capabilities of the Navy of the IRGC, we speak about mines, about small boats, explosive boats or kamikaze boats, about sea-to-sea missiles which are accurate, commando capabilities, and even drones that can fly either from the land or from the boat itself, drones that are under the Navy of the IRGC and can attack targets in the Straits, in the Hormuz Straits. So I think when Iran is talking about, or its proxy is talking about blocking the Hormuz Straits, these are the military capabilities that we are talking about. I want to believe that much of them either were damaged or are being damaged as we speak in order to prevent this situation. But maybe Eldad can address this option.
Okay, thank you very much for this, Sarit. We've had some technical issues. I've also dropped from the line a bit. Eldad, it's good to see you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Okay, good. We're in a good start. So taking it from there, let's discuss yesterday's strike. Sarit said the Iranians are basically going to go kind of all in, including maybe closing the Straits of Hormuz. I want you to discuss the US, but what you said, Sarit, closing the Straits of Hormuz is waging war against like the rest of the world. So it's almost, I don't know, it's like Germany 1945. It's a near suicidal move, but if the regime will do that, it remains to be seen. I wanted to ask you, Eldad, first about yesterday's strike. We know the US and Israel have been sharing intelligence for years. Still, this is kind of a peak of this collaboration. The entire weeks and months leading to the strike, including the Trump-Netanyahu kind of charade, no? He's frozen to me again. Can you go ahead?
Yes, of course, speaking about Israeli American relations. But first, I want to say that what the US did, and after that, President Trump said it publicly, they targeted the nuclear facilities, and they threatened that if Iran will react, like it was mentioned by Sarit, the US response will be a severe response, probably also against other targets in Iran. I think what the Americans are preferring now is that the Iranian will come to them and will ask now for an agreement that will be that will include, of course, all the US demands. I think that's what they are preferring. They are ready not to continue the military campaign, and they are ready to sign an agreement and even to lift some of the sanctions if that will happen. I don't know if it will happen, but this at least is the American objective. I believe they don't want to proceed the military campaign. They want to leverage the military attack for a political solution, because even after what President Trump said, that the US destroyed all the nuclear facilities, it's still too early to say that the BDA that will probably will be conducted by all the players will show that this attack significantly demolished, eliminated all the Iranian capabilities concerning the nuclear ambitions. On the other hand, of course, I believe that the Iranians now, I don't know about attacking US targets. I don't know. I'm not sure that this will be the Iranian first choice, but maybe their first choice, for example, will be to announce that they withdraw from the NPT, or maybe expel all the inspectors and make it much more difficult for the US and the Israelis to try to monitor what is their current situation. Now, speaking about the attack, I'm not sure that this was the first choice of President Trump to attack Iran. I think in the last few days he tried to bring the Iranians to the table, but he failed. And at the same time, parallel to that, at the same time, he ordered preparation for the attack that was taken yesterday evening. And the reasons are a lot of reasons why the American. There are of course the Israeli-U.S. relations and the commitment of the United States to the Israeli security. This is a very important pillar to the Israeli national security, and it was something that the Americans had to take because of their objectives concerning protecting Israel, and like they said that they are obliged to prevent from Iran achieving nuclear capabilities, and because Iran was stubborn, they had to take the attack after Israel, of course, conducted more than a week attacks on Iran and prepared the area for their the question is now what will happen after that. And you know, the problem.
You froze to me. I don't know if others can hear you. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear if Eldad is speaking or not. Okay, Sarit, can you hear me?
You can hear me?
Okay, Sarit, please open your mic. I can't hear what Eldad is saying. If he's continuing
I hear you and Eldad perfectly.
Can you hear Eldad? So
Can
it's
you hear
probably
me?
on my end. Let me just present the question then to Eldad. Quite simply, I stopped hearing you halfway through, so I don't know. So you said about how the IDF prepared the way, and to be politically incorrect about this, as they say, it's not over until the fat lady sings. The B2s being the fat lady, but now this is like a Wagner trilogy, from America's perspective. Surely they knew this could be the start of another war. I mean, it's kind of the finishing act for Israel, hopefully, this destruction of Fordo. But America surely knew that it's doing the first proactive aggressive step. It's entering a new game with Iran. Isn't that so? Sorry about the metaphors.
Yeah, probably they took under consideration the possibility that there will be a deterioration and they will go into a war, but they don't want it. I think that this administration was elected, and President Trump said it again and again, that he wants to end war and not to open wars. And even today, now after the attack, he and his people are saying that the Americans are not planning to continue the war. Of course, if the Iranians will take some steps against U.S. Targets in the region or out the region, the Americans will react, but they don't want to go in. They know that this war can be bloody war, and they don't want to go into this war. And now the main objective now is how to leverage. And the issue, one of the questions that we ask ourselves, because there are a lot of questions, and we have less answers than questions. One of the questions is what will happen if the Iranians will not be ready to go into discussions, negotiations now, and not be ready to an agreement. What will happen then? The Americans and the Israelis are continue the war, or they declare a cessation of fire and now continue with other means to try to eliminate the Iranians' capability to pressure them, cripple functions, and like it was before. It's really too early to say exactly what will be what. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
What will be the U.S. and the Israeli decisions? This morning, the Iranians launched a very big strike against Israel with a lot of damage. Fortunately, there were not a lot of casualties, but it depends now how it will continue. I think the Americans probably will maybe they already did it. They sent a clear message to the Iranians that they would like now to see that the Iranians are coming to them and be ready for an agreement. There is another report that was on the news today that the message that was conveyed from the Americans to the Iranians were that the Americans are not the Americans are not now trying to topple the regime. They only concentrate on eliminating nuclear facilities. I think this message is the reason for this message is to tell the Iranians that they need to come to the Americans now. It's the only way for the Iranians to help them to protect the regime is if they come and make a good deal with the Americans, because it's clear to the Americans, I think, that the U.S. administration, that the way to topple the regime will be very, very difficult, and will force the U.S. to invest a lot of efforts to do it, including maybe a long, bloody war, and they really don't want it.
Okay, but I mean, I wanted to ask you something about the participation of the Houthis in Yemen, but continuing from what Sarit said, even a very weakened Iranian Islamic Republic regime is the same ideological regime. Down the line, we know what they're like. How is regime change basically not also a kind of US priority in this sense?
No, it's not.
Even if Khamenei is gone, the council of his bearded men are gonna probably, think along the same lines because they're religious and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very difficult to topple the regime. I don't think that the regime change is on the U.S. agenda. Meanwhile, what they would like to see, that like they said, the Iranian surrounding. One of the difficult scenarios, I think, or more difficult scenarios, is if the Iranians will not come to the table and will not agree for a new agreement, and even if they will not hit U.S. position, what then U.S. and Israel will do? The only thing that we can do, and the Americans can do, is continue this military campaign. I don't know how much we can proceed with that and achieve the objectives, or stop the military campaign and continue with other means, sanctions, other operations, along the time. But on the other side, we can find ourselves with a scenario that the Iranians are withdrawing from the NPT, expelling the inspectors, and trying to use what still they have concerning the nuclear plan. I don't know again what happened with the enriched material that they have, more than 400 kilograms of enriched uranium to 60%. What happened actually? What happened in Fordo? They need only a small place for continuing to enrich and then convert, and I don't know what capabilities they have concerning the organization. So I think the best way is to force them to go into an agreement, or use it to go into an agreement. But if they don't go into an agreement and they continue to be stubborn, it can complicate the situation. You can continue with the war, of course. I don't think that this is I don't think this is what the Trump administration would like, that the war will continue and they will have to invest more military effort. Again, as I said before, there are more questions than answers this morning, a few hours after the US attack.
Do you think this is the peak leverage that the US has on Iran, or is there more up its sleeve that it could do?
Yeah, they can
to pressure the Iranian regime.
No doubt it's a peak, because they had, at least theoretically, they had the capabilities to destroy Fordo. Still need to be the BDA need to be analyzed, but I don't know exactly if they succeed. Theoretically they had to succeed with this kind of ammunition. They of course can continue the war. They have the means, but there will be prices for this continuation of war. They can hit civilian targets. They can hit the fuel infrastructures. They can do a lot of damage to the Iranian economy. But the question is if that will bring the Iranian to abandon their nuclear ambitions. I'm not sure. On the contrary, there are a lot of Iranian experts. I'm not an Iranian expert. There are a lot of Iranian experts that are saying now that Iran is vulnerable, but on the other hand, Iran is angry, and maybe there are no more limitation for Iran because they already were heated by Israel and the US. So what else can be happen? What else can happen? And they can now run for a bomb if they have the capabilities. And still, it needs to be understand if they have capabilities.
I think that in light of everything that was attacked in Iran, to assume that they still have the capability to run for a bomb, it's difficult to convince me, to tell you the truth. I think that so much damage was caused in so many levels that it will take them a while to recover.
What about Sarit?
It's not relevant.
No.
Can I move you back to your terrain, Sarit? I think there were strikes in southern Lebanon at 5 a.m. this morning, right?
Yes, yesterday and this morning as well. There were strikes. Also the usual, I would say, part of it was the usual strikes against Hezbollah military operatives that are trying to come back to the south, and this is something that we had seen basically since the beginning of the ceasefire in November. But we also saw twice strikes against warehouses and assembly of rockets in South Lebanon, which is something that they are not supposed to be there due to the agreement. It was supposed to be the mission of the Lebanese armed forces to make sure that they are not there. And yet IDF had to bomb those places in South Lebanon. Maybe we don't know exactly all the locations. Maybe some of them were north of the Litani River. Yet in some places north to the Litani River is very close to Israeli communities. So like few kilometers.
Okay, so I mean, we know that over the past 10 days, after a few days, Hezbollah said some words, the charismatic chief of Hezbollah said some words, but nothing came of it. But now, are they likely to maybe join on behalf of Iran when it's so unknown? And also, please, if you can assess what's actually Hezbollah's residual rocket capability, as well as their forward-looking manufacturing capability, facilities, etc. We know the Lebanese army and the president, their Aoun, is telling them to keep quiet, but they probably have their own agenda.
Look, by the expressions that are coming out of all proxies, as I've said, Iraqi Houthis and Hezbollah, it seems like the order was given to get involved. Hezbollah, since it was defeated, I would say, in the last war, it is hesitating of doing that. Nobody can promise us that it will not happen, but we see the hesitation clearly with all the pressure that is coming out of the Lebanese government and of the American administration. As for capabilities, it is not capable of doing what it planned to, what it was supposed to do by the Iranian plan to defend it with regard to the nuclear sites. That's why everything is happening now. It doesn't have the same amount of rockets. 80% of its arsenal was degraded during the war, so they probably have a few thousand more. That's a lot of rockets, but it's nothing like it used to be, and it's not a strategic threat to the state of Israel. Probably those who were more advanced and to longer distances don't exist, or mostly don't exist anymore in the hands of Hezbollah. And they don't have the capability to carry out an invasion as they were completely prepared in October 7th, 2023. I am always saying that two terrorists can cross any barrier anywhere and try to enter to a community, and we will have to stop that. But an invasion of thousands, I think this is off the table for now. And that's not the impact that it was supposed to make due to the Iranian and Hezbollah plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Going back to you, Eldad, I want to speak about the Houthis for a second. Nobody in Israel misses them. They're quite a nuisance. And I heard in a different briefing that from all the strikes of the coalition in America, Israel a few weeks ago or something took a step further and struck facilities of rocket launching. Are they not firing so far at us because of lack of capability or lack of will? And also, I'd like to ask, we know their patron is Iran. All these proxies, to what degree are they by now kind of their own agents in the sense of making the rockets and the launchers, and to what degree all these strikes against Iran by Israel, not the American strike against Fordo, because it's a different topic. To what degree do they degrade the proxies' capability of mounting attacks? Materially, not ideologically.
No, about the Houthis, I don't have I really don't know. I don't know. I personally I'm not follow the Houthis. I think that the Houthis stopped to they after the agreement that they reached with the US, they stopped to attack US targets, and they concentrated on Israeli targets. I think the main reason why they again I don't know. I think this is my assessment of my thought that they stopped to attack Israel in the last week or so because the Iranians attacked us. So why they need to attack us too if the Iranians are already attacking us now? What they threatened this morning is to resume attacking the U.S. Targets. I think that they have still capabilities, and more than that, they are maybe the only Iranian proxy now that still have the willingness and the capabilities to attack Israel and U.S. Targets. Hezbollah, like it was, is not. Hezbollah still sit quiet, and there is no response, even after the Americans attacked the Iranians. And I don't think that the Iraqis proxies are going to attack, not because they don't have capabilities. They have capabilities, but after the Iranians attack us with this kind of barrage of surface-to-surface missiles, the others are what contribution they can contribute to this overall attack. So maybe they will bother us. I don't know. Maybe the Houthis will try to say that they are helping the Iranians or they are together with the Iranians, but I don't think this is something significant. It can happen. It can be significant for the Americans if they will start again to attack Americans. Then the Americans will have to decide if they are resuming their attacks against the Houthis that Trump wanted to stop.
Okay, thank you for very much for this, Eldad. I wanted to ask in this vein, essentially, so America knew full well that it may be entering now into a war with all these proxies. So I wanted to ask, we know that there's been a sort of charade played between the U.S. and Israel to put the Iranians to sleep, right?
Maybe.
You ask it. Yeah.
I'm posing. I mean, we know now in retrospect that there have been a lot of moves, not just military movings of assets to the wrong place to create a deception, but also perhaps Trump telling Netanyahu, I warned him not to attack Iran and things like that, which in retrospect we know that the strike was in place. So I want to ask, back then, when the United States reached an agreement with the Houthis in Israel, the feeling was like, oh, look at this Trump, we can't trust him. He's got his own deal with Yemen and we're left behind. And we've been waking up to those rockets every night 2 weeks after that, and people were quite upset that the US kind of made its own deal. Was this part of the deception, or is just a different topic, different aspect of policy, etc.?
No, I don't think this is part of the deception. I think that the Americans or the U.S. administration took some steps or contrary to the Israeli interests. I think the decision to meet the president of Syria, the agreement with the Houthis, the decision to go into negotiations with the Iranians, the announcement of this decision during the Meow visit in the United States. This was contrary to the Israeli interest, and I'm not sure that it was coordinated with Israel. What happened, I think, in the last 2 weeks is that Israel two things happened. One, the Iranians didn't show any flexibility, and their response to the US offer was negative. And this is one thing. The other thing is, I think Israel was determined to start this military campaign against Iran, and didn't want to wait. And Trump didn't want to veto Israeli decision to take this attack, because he understood that there is no other choice, because the Iranians are stubborn. So what happened since? I don't know. I'm not part of the discussion. I think that last Friday or last Thursday, when Israel started this campaign, I don't think that Trump was in the state of mind that he's going to attack Iran. I think what happened is that during the last week and during the deliberation that were taken in the United States administration, he understood that there is no other choice. After the Iranians, even on Friday, during the meetings with his European counterparts, Arakchi was still on the same position of defying any attempts to find new ways to make a decision. He continued to say that Iran is not willing to abandon its enrichment activity. So there was no other choice for the Americans. So they made some deception, and of course, Trump said that in the next 2 weeks, and he went for a weekend to New Jersey and everything like that. And the ways of the flights of the B-2 were they were too spot. I don't know. They took some steps, but I don't think that it was their first choice to attack. But once they understood that Israel had some successes, and without the American contribution, the chances to really damage the Iranian nuclear capabilities are low, they had no other choice but to join. And I think this is what they did last night. And, you know, again, I understand what Sarit said before, that she does not convinced that the Iranians can proceed, or they are not withdrawing years from their capabilities. But, you know, Trump yesterday, 10 minutes or 1 hour after the attack, already announced that those sites were destroyed. It's impossible, you know, after 1 hour give a concrete and a full bomb damage assessment. It takes time. And I know that in the past there were simulations. What can be the impact of those kinds of bombs on Fordo? And in the simulations there were successes. But you know, simulation is simulations, and real attacks are real attacks. And now we have to wait to see that really there were really significant damage. Now I know that there were some reports that in the last 2 days the Iranians are tried to take out some material from Fordo. I don't know exactly what kind of materials, but I'm sure that the Iranians understood that they can witness an American attack, and they took some preemptive steps to try to limit the damage. I don't know if they succeed, but at least the logic of tell us to be careful and wait to see. And now again, the Iranians are much more angry there after US attacks, and they can decide on some steps that they stop short of taking in the past.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much for this. I would like to pose a question for you, Sarit, now regarding that assumption that, of course, Eldad is right that it's typical of Trump to announce complete success 10 minutes after the bombers have gone, and that these Moab, mother of all bombs, penetrator, bunker busting bombs, were not really used before. But okay, let's assume this pessimistic take and consider that the uranium may have been removed before that from Fordo. Setting aside the chances of Iran going back on the nuclear path let's say, relatively quickly and rushing to a bomb like it was meant to perhaps do just before Israel decided to launch its preemptive attack. What are the odds of, God forbid, one of the incoming salvos of the coming days having like a dirty warhead or something like that? Is this something the Israeli defense systems are preparing for, or is this even something you think the Iranians might do in a sort of desperation? What are the odds of a dirty bomb, basically?
It's just an instinct-based evaluation, okay? So for an instinct-based evaluation, I don't think, as I've said, I don't think they are capable of getting to a bomb that actually could be launched on top of a missile to Israel at this point with all the circumstances around us. I completely agree with Eldad that it is too soon to say what's the impact of everything that happened in the past week, including the American attack. And here I want to zoom out. I think that our experience from Lebanon and Syria showed us that the impact can be much greater than what we imagine, and it is much more than just elimination of the weapons themselves. It is creating, I don't want to say new order, but it is creating a new situation that Iran is weaker than it used to be. Iran today is not Iran of 10 days ago. That's a simple truth. With or without the BDA, with regard to what happened in Fordo tonight, I think that what was clearly demonstrated is that Israel is flying freely in Iran's skies. This is huge. This is a huge message to its proxies. It's a huge message to the Middle East. And it also enables us to monitor things that we couldn't monitor in the past in different tools. And that's why I think that to evaluate the impact of everything that happened here in the past 10 days, it will take a few months at least to understand where everything is going. And to look at that in the bigger picture, not only the question of the specific question of the nuclear project.
Right.
Okay, thank you for the Sarit. Yes, Eldad, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I want to say 2 points. One is when I say that Iran can be or maybe will be determined to find ways how to proceed with its nuclear ambition, I'm not speaking only about the next few days. I'm speaking about coming years, because the Iranians they have patience. If they can recover some of their capabilities, and if they preserve some of their capabilities, it can take time. I agree, it's not tomorrow, but they are much more angry and much more careful. This is one thing. Another thing, I think, at least from my perspective, the outcome of this war, and still we are not closing the war, because this war can continue. I don't know how long it will continue. It depends on the Iranian reaction, and of course it's depends on what the Americans and the Israelis will decide. But the outcome, if we really want to try at least to make sure that the Iranians for the long run will limit their ambitions, or to make it easy for harder for them, is then there need to be an agreement that the Iranian will agree for a very wide inspector apparatus. And it will be difficult, but at least from the side of the international community, this need to be one of the main demands, because without, and not only IAEA, because IAEA already failed to monitor all, what need to be a new and unprecedented inspector apparatus inside Iran. I don't know if it will happen, but without that, the chances that the Iranian will continue with their attempts are higher.
Okay, thank you for this, Eldad. I would like to thank both our guests, Lieutenant Colonel Reserve Sarit Zehavi and Eldad Shavit from the ISS. I would like to apologize for any technical difficulties we had during the Zoom. We had some internet issues. I would like to remind all of the journalists on the line, there's quite a lot of you. Today is June 22nd, 2025. Yesterday, the US bombed Fordo. This all started on October 7, 2023, when Hamas infiltrated Israel. Iran's ring of fire over the course of 2 years was dismantled completely. And going from what I spoke with Sarit before, the IAF has shown over the past 10 days that it is conducting strikes in 5 simultaneous arenas. Quite impressive achievements, objectively from a military perspective. This briefing will be on YouTube later today, quite later, I think, because we have some edits to make. And also, we're at your service for experts, also the experts we interviewed today. Again, thank you so much, Sarit and Eldad. Thank you, Ali, Naor from the JPC for producing this briefing. I'm Jonathan Beck. I'll continue to be Jonathan Beck tomorrow. Goodbye for now.